Experience, quality, consistency, and the quickest turnaround times in the grading industry? We are proud to partner with SGC Grading. Check them out at www.gosgc.com. Experience, quality, consistency, and the quickest turnaround times in the grading industry? We are proud to partner with SGC Grading. Check them out at www.gosgc.com.
Hi, I'm Danny Black.
And I'm John Newman.
Welcome to Card Mentions. What's going on? You doing the opening?
And boom goes the dynamite. Remember that?
There it is. What's going on? You know this is episode 50. We forgot to talk about that.
I didn't know that. The big 50.
I think so. What's up, Ruben? What's up, Barry?
Yeah,
it's 50, right?
it is 50. That's what comes after 49 last time I checked. So
Thank you very much.
I know that is nuts. It is crazy to think that this.
It is. I'm going to leave that up there for a minute. So that's like a virtual patting ourselves on the back.
Yeah.
Just a little humble brag. How many other shows make 50 episodes?
And maybe even if they're doing one a week, which we don't do, we do one every 2 weeks. So even more so.
Ruben says I'm the only one that does. Yeah, good enough. Mookie, it's actually 45 for your first colonoscopy. You're running late.
I don't want to talk about that stuff.
All right, John's moving back on to our 50th episode here. We'll leave it on congratulations 50. It is. That's a big deal, dude.
It is. I really, because it's 100 regular episodes if it's a weekly show is what that is. And I got 300 something, Sports Carnations. That show's been around a while, 6 years. So yeah, 50 is a lot.
2 years.
Yeah. Almost into the third year, because that, if we're every other week, 52 weeks is 2 years. So
I want to know. I'm putting this in the chat.
I got my pick. I'm going to save it to the end. You're
not going to tell me. You're not going to tell me your pick
at the end of the show.
What do I have to tune in?
Yeah, it's called a tease.
What's our favorite episode out of the 50? That's a great question.
I don't even remember. Probably 70.
We've had some fun ones. You know what? For me, it's the one that we don't see coming, and we think it's going to be a regular show, and we end up laughing for the whole time, and it goes by quickly, and we finish. And
yeah,
we're like,
I think a good show for me is if I listen to it again, while I'm driving, and obviously I was dude the show, so nothing should be new, but something I hear us say and I laugh out loud in my car by myself. That's a mark of I did the show and it still makes me laugh after, even after I know it's coming.
Mookie says tonight is the 38th
anniversary. And it sure is.
Mookie Wilson, Bill Buckner.
Rest in peace, Bill Buckner.
Yep. Can we do an hour on that?
Here's the thing, Mookie. Thanks for remembering. It is exactly 38 years ago today. And when I say that number, man,
for us.
Well, when I say that number, how 38 years ago, think about it, man. I was 30. I can't believe it's been that long. And then you realize how old you are. I saw that, man. I was 14 years old, and I was a New Mets fan at that point. I switched over in 1984, So I was kind of in my early stages. And, I remember, obviously, I remember that night in the Bill Buckner play. And there was a small part of me, even though I was obviously rooting for the Mets, Danny, there was a small part of me that knew how big that play was and how bad that play was for Buckner. I actually felt bad. I
Yeah,
actually,
a lot of people
as
felt.
even as a 14-year-old kid, I actually remember feeling remorse or feeling, I don't know if worried's the right word, but concerned for him and how he could go back to, I was thinking even his teammates, what's that locker room like? He's got to be like the loneliest man in the world. And then we saw what happened in the next game, right?
You and
And
I have talked about this. If in real time, there was a lot of stuff going wrong that led up to that.
yeah, but that was a big one. That was a big one. The wheels were starting.
I'm with Barry on this.
Yeah, and everyone makes errors. Everyone makes errors. I get it. But in the hot lights of a World Series, and that, listen, I saw Mookie said Mookie saved us. You know, fate saved you. Mookie, that was a very slow hit ball. Now, I've heard the argument that could have they got Mookie out if Buckner fielded that cleanly, it might have been close. I would have leaned towards the out. I mean, it wasn't a hard hit ground ball. That's one of the reasons why people discuss like Mookie beating it out if even if Buckner, but it was not a hard hit ball. It was not a laser and just went through the
There was the
wickets.
Bob Stanley wild pitch.
Yes, which came. I think that came afterwards. That was what. And then there was a next game, but there wouldn't have been in the. In my mind, Buckner again. One they say one play doesn't win or lose you a game. Buckner's play was a big one.
Well, what
It
people don't
probably would
forget
have.
is he was not their normal ninth inning first baseman. I forget, and Mookie fill me in. Who was the regular defensive ninth inning first baseman that they didn't bring because they wanted Buckner to get to be on the field for the clinch?
For the Red Sox.
Yeah, Dave
Can't remember.
Stapleton. Thank you, Mookie.
Yeah,
I knew you would know it.
yeah. And Mookie makes a great point. It was a great at bat by Mookie Wilson. Fouling pitchers off. In my mind, I remember him lunging for one that was on the corner where he just barely got the bat on it. And had he not, it would have been a called strike. So it's a good point. He battled. It was a battle at bat. When he finally made contact, though, it was no great shakes. But the at bat itself was epic. I remember, again, 14-year-old kid who was playing. And this was, again, I talk about 86. This was really when I kind of came into my own as a player myself and was starting to get people to take notice of how I played and that sort of thing. So baseball was really high on my list of and here my favorite team was. I would have watched that World Series or that playoffs, right? In this case, the World Series, regardless of the Mets were in it or not. That's how big of a baseball fan. The fact that they were in it, even more so. And that's just one of those moments that stick with you, and it's like slow motion. But the sensitive part of me even felt for Bill Buckner. Uh, you know, Secondarily, I'm like, oh man, as a player myself, like that guy, how's he go back in his locker room if they don't win? How's he walk the streets of Boston again? So
I'm gonna say that to Mookie. He said the Mookie Wilson at bat is the most consequential at bat in World Series history.
I you
Joe Carter,
yeah, I
um,
mean,
Kirk
I get
Gibson.
it. There's a lot of them, but that one's in the
It
that one's
was a
in
bit.
the running.
It's in the conversation.
I think too, and Moogie could correct me if I'm wrong. I think too, he's saying just the battle, how long the bat was. how it looked bleak at times, how he kind of just barely get something on the bat and stay alive. When you factor in all that, the length, the dramatics of it, I'd probably say Kirk Gibson, Joe Carter. I didn't see wasn't around live to see the Bill Mazeroski. I know a lot of people talk about that one.
You're not that old.
Yeah, no, not yet. I'm catching up there where I could talk about being there, but no, I mean, yeah, that movie was, and it's it is. It's a play you see on like films and clips about baseball. It lives on apparently 38 years later, and it's in Mets history. I know there was the '69 World Series, which was an upset. You're welcome for me bringing that back up, but the '86 was we hadn't won one since, and I don't know. It's just a weird, and to think it was that long ago. It doesn't feel. I will say this: as someone who watched it, doesn't feel like 38 years.
1969 never happened. Ruben says, I picture a 14-year-old Newman with a satin jacket, black jeans with a hole in the knee, Adidas high tops with the tongues out, and a curly mullet. It's like
No
you've
mullet.
looked at his childhood pictures, Mookie.
I will say, not far off, but definitely not a mullet. My hair grew like this rather than like this. So if I didn't cut it, it gets higher, at least at that time. I'm trying to think. Yeah, probably some sweatpants, man. I was a sweatpants kid whenever I could get away with it. So
I could see you in, remember the Zubas?
I had a Steeler pair of those, the black and yellow. I didn't wear it a ton. It was, you had to pick your spot. There's another apparel you had to pick.
There was no good place to pick those.
Yeah, I managed. Sundays I wore those bad boys. The Adidas is probably the closest thing. I probably had shell tops rather than the high tops. So Adidas shell tops, which I still wear occasionally today. Yeah, mullets were not big in New York back, at least in 1986. So Lenny Dykstra was trying to make it so, but overall, the population in New York, while we love nails, we didn't necessarily want to rock his hairdo. That's what made him him. If we all had the same hair, we wouldn't have liked him.
That was a whole team of mullets.
Yeah. I had to mensch fro, especially at that age, for whatever odd reason.
All right, so we're not actually going to do an hour on the '86 World Series. But
no, I was going to say we haven't even got into what we're doing today yet.
Well, we haven't gotten into anything. I want to give a shout out
It's the Seinfeld episode.
Right now, we're doing our introduction. What's up, Warren? You got here just in time for the start of the show. John, I know you've recently become a big fan of Penny Sleever. Do you want to give them a shout out?
Yeah, we met him. You as well at the National in Cleveland, Isaac, and Upstart Company.
Good
which
guy.
we got some sample packs of supplies, and they're gone. I've used them all. Let's be real, they're just as good. You know what I mean? Supplies are supplies, as long as they do what they're designed to do. So then it comes down to, if quality's all pretty similar, right? It comes down to price. And they're one of the lowest in the space. And promo, right? Use SC Nation at checkout as your promo code. Take 10% off your order, your total. So again, it was a $100 order. Boom, it's all of a sudden $90. And great supplies. And they make a lot of different things. And I think there's things in the work to even more different things coming down the turnpike eventually. So.
Did I get that right? I just put in the promo code for everybody in the chat.
Yeah, spelled right. And that's the www.thepennysleever.com.
All right, awesome. So tonight on episode 50, we are talking about the World Series in the men's way. we're looking back at the great Dodger Yankee lineups and kind of combining the two teams and coming up with a lineup that represents the best of each position, with maybe some of our favorite baseball card players mixed in, and some other shout outs. But the key is here that we want to go into 1950 and newer. So we're not gonna have Ruth or Gehrig or Fox or a bunch of other guys.
I had to erase Gehrig, forgetting our rule that we agreed to.
Yeah,
I had to erase Gehrig. I had a mind lapse on that one, so I had to redo that one with someone that fits the criteria 50 and the current.
all right.
So sorry, Lou.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I'd rather have the Babe in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to kind of start on one that's probably pretty chalk, but
yeah, lead the way. Lead the way. Again, this is one of your great topics, so go ahead.
All right, I think if you look at the history of the Dodgers and the history of the Yankees, the best catcher between the two franchises, Yogi Berra slightly in front of Roy Campanella for me.
Yeah, no doubt. Roy, Yogi with all the rings. Roy, unfortunate accident which cost him his career. Not his fault, obviously, but longevity, right? It's got to count for something, and it allowed Yogi to have enough rings where they won't fit on both of his hands combined, and he became a Hall of Famer, obviously, and just he's in the mix when people talk about greatest catchers. He's not generally the pick, but he's at least mentioned. And so if you're mentioned in the all-time catchers list, period, and you fit the criteria for this list, you're gonna make it.
Thurman Munson, no doubt, third on the list.
Yeah, Thurman was my dude. I would have loved to put Thurman ahead of Yogi, but that wouldn't have been fair. That would have been objective, you know what I mean? So it would have just been it would have became a popularity contest and pick your favorite Yankees, right?
If
so I didn't do that
contest. Rick Dempsey would have won.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you go Berra, Campanella, Munson. You can almost make Munson and Campanella 2 and 2A.
No,
honestly,
no, Campy was much better.
Yeah, maybe there's my Munson homerism coming to life. But I think the great argument is who's fourth, Steve Yeager.
Wow, it's a drop off. I mean, I'm not being funny.
Yeah. Is it Joe Girardi? Is it Steve Yeager?
I was just gonna say that.
I think it's a better conversation for fourth than for first, because I think first is chalk here with Berra.
Mike Scioscia.
Ooh, I forgot. Yeah, see, you forget dudes.
That's why we have the best chat room.
Yeah. Mike Piazza, he didn't, he's looked at more as I think a Met, but he was at the Dodgers for a little bit. You can throw Piazza at that point.
The famous story about Tommy Lasorda picking him in the 42nd round.
I think he played 5 or 6 years in Dodger.
Elston Howard, another good one.
Yeah. I was too young for Elston, so in defense of myself, that's where I lean Munson, because I grew up with Munson, watching Munson. But everyone, if you talk to someone who knows or watched Elston Howard play, they do rave about him. So,
what's going on, Larry? Glad you jumped in. All right, so we're going around the horn here on the Yankees and Dodgers, kind of blending them for an all-time team. I also want to say that certain people I picked because I like their cards better if it was a tough call. So being a hobby show, there's definitely a little bit of that. And speaking of which, let's go to first base.
Right. Well, I'll let you go first, or who I don't know who went for it. We kind
Well,
of
you go first because I had a feeling of what you might do, and I reacted.
I wrote before when I just had a brain fart, forgot that it had to be 50 and up. I wrote Gehrig, and then you talking to you before the show, he's like, "Hey, remember it's 50 and up," and I'm like, "Oh, why did I write Gehrig down?" So I had to erase it and replace it, and Steve Garvey was someone I thought about. I'm not gonna lie, I like Steve Garvey.
Do you?
Um,
I think he's overrated.
I think he's underrated. So isn't that
Yeah.
crazy? Same
Okay.
guy. Yeah. So Steve
You're just
Garvey,
charmed by his hair.
yeah. He look up his numbers, man. They will surprise you in his all-star appearances, and he
Yeah.
wasn't a bad fielder. Like he didn't have a ton of holes in his game. Arms like the nickname Popeye, and so it's not Gil Hodges, man. Gil Hodges was on the list for me, but I went with Mattingly. Man. I again,
I love
maybe, and
Mattingly.
it's no disrespect. Listen, if it was close and I could pick a Dodger over a Yankee, I was going to do it. But I had to go with Mattingly, man. Even when I wasn't a Yankee fan anymore, he was a guy that made it hard to go, and I became a fan, and I stayed following him, even though I didn't root for his team, right? And again, great play. Yeah,
So let me ask you a question. Which Mattingly rookie is your favorite?
that's easy. I can look at it right there. It's 84 Donruss, man. I spent a lot of 12-year-old money and probably other people's 12-year-old money. I probably took out loans as a 12-year-old buying 84 Donruss packs. I just love number one. I love that set design, the Manly rookie chase, the Tony Gwynn in that, who I was a fan of even at an early stage. I know it was the second year. Um, that card was a great card, and just I love that set. Donruss. There's not too many Donruss sets that make my list for like well designed.
Agreed.
That's one of my but there's not many on that list. But the '84 Donruss is at the top of my all time favorite, including like vintage era. '84 Donruss is right there for me.
Warren, I asked the question, but I agree with you, and I agree with Newman. The 84 Donruss on the Mattingly rookies, no doubt. I want to go back to Mookie's comment because he said Gil Hodges is easy number one. That's what I had, Mookie. I had Gil
Listen,
Hodges.
I'm not proud to say I picked Manley over Hodges, and Hodges is in the baseball hall, and Manley isn't. Hodges got a World Series ring. Manley
I'm going to defend
doesn't.
you. I think Mattingly's underrated, and I think it's a lot closer than people would think in this conversation. But I took Hodges.
And I think Hodges is more of a power hitter, or known for being more of a power hitting first baseman than Manley. But on the other side of that coin, Manley's known as a clutch 300 type hitter. Hodges is not a 300 type hitter guy, and he didn't claim to be. That wasn't his game.
And this is a great point. Hodges has his number retired in Queens and LA.
Yeah, I do think the Yankees should. If I'm assuming it's not, then I almost think Mattingly should have his number retired. With 23, there's some Jordan connotation, and I know that's not why he was number 23.
What
But
does one have to do
yeah,
with the other?
I don't know. But when you think of famous 23s, right? Those are the first two. Those are the first in my mind, anyway.
I'd have to think about it. There's a lot of 23s. Kobe wore 23,
Yeah.
didn't he?
No, 24.
24 and 42.
No, 24, and then he went to 8 later on with
I'm
the
not a
2
numbers
times
guy,
4.
if you can't tell.
Yeah.
Mattingly is in Monument Park.
Yeah, man. I can make a case for the Hall of Fame for Donald Arthur Mattingly, man. Like, Hodges was hard to go against, but I don't know. I just think Manley overall was a better player. And, who do you want up? And again, give the advantage to Manley because I watched him play. I watched him play live. I was chasing that 84 Donruss, and spending a lot of my allowance and other monies on that product. So, it hits close to the heart. So I went with Manley. But Hodges is right there. And I won't argue with anybody who put, Hodges on the list. You can't argue against it. It's just which one do you pick, right? And Tino, I saw someone mention Tino in the chat. Quiet guy, just goes, he's probably worth at least an honorable mention just for the World Series he appeared in. So and then he's always
Tino was intense.
Yeah, and he was a good hitter in his own right.
Yeah, but separately from these guys. All right, second base. Is this chalk across the board? We both obviously have Willie Randolph, right?
I love me some Willie Randolph.
I knew you would.
Mets, and then he became Mets manager. I will say this. Obviously, I think most people know who I picked, but there wasn't a lot of choices.
But nobody was going to beat Jackie. Come on.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I mean, what were some other candidates?
Chuck Knobloch.
Steve Sachs for the Dodgers.
I mean, Willie Randolph might be the best.
Willie Randolph would probably be next. And no offense to Willie Randolph, the fact that he's the next best, Dodgers second baseman, Davey Lopes, another, but that the fact that Willie Randolph was probably the next best guy after Jackie tells you about, how do I want the lack of quality choices at second base. Comparatively speaking,
Willie Randolph and Lou Piniella. Sorry to cut you off. That's pretty cool, Warren.
Yeah,
Junior Gilliam.
I got a feeling Lou Piniella ate more you're cooking.
Yeah.
But you never know.
Willie Randolph managed the Orioles one year for 54
games. He was a Mets guy too. Yeah, we're seeing, Steve Sachs, Davey Lopes, did Bobby Meacham play some second base? Remember him? He started out at least as a shortstop.
I think we can agree it's Jackie.
Yeah. I'm going to pick Jackie unless there was someone that was even close, and there really wasn't. Willie Randolph would have probably been my second choice after Jackie.
All right, I'm not going to go by number
Junior
here.
Junior Gilliam. That's another great name. Yep.
I'm not going to go by number. I'm just going around the horn. So we'll go to shortstop next. 6 in your scorebook. But this was an interesting one. I did not want to choose this player. I still don't want to choose the player. I'm thinking about just leaving it blank. But I gotta admit, Jeter's, which says a lot because I think Jeter's overrated, and the fact that the Dodgers and the Yankees, neither one of them have had a shortstop better than Derek Jeter, is amazing. You can say Pee Wee Reese and defensively, and maybe some of the social things he did on and off the field, but no, it's Jeter at shortstop.
Yeah, I think a lot of people know what I think about Derek Jeter. I also think he fits the overrated category. He kind of, gets a lot of credit for being the starting Yankee shortstop. Good-looking guy, played on some teams with loaded. He wasn't like he carried them by himself. But let's be real, he's a Hall of Famer. He's got a lot of rings, and he made some big-time plays in those World Series he appeared in that we remember. And so you got to give it to Jeter. Pee Wee, if you looked at just his numbers, you definitely wouldn't argue him over Jeter, but he's more than his numbers. So, he's in the mix, but you can't justify Reese over Jeter and with a straight face. So I too went Jeter. And listen, I'm not a Jeter guy, but credit where credit's due.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on from Jeter. Enough of him.
Right.
On to another one that we don't want to talk about. Third base. I want to see what the chat room says before we vomit in our mouth a little bit. I mean, if you look at the history, there's Nettles. We talked about
who I
that.
grew up with. That he was one of my, he wasn't my favorite. Munson was, but Nettles was I liked him a lot.
Yeah. We talked about the fact that you had a little bit of Adrian Beltre for part of his career.
Not long enough. Not long
Nope.
enough. Ron Say, a longtime Dodger, the Penguin, right?
Yeah.
He's, he's at least in the conversation.
But without being the baseball police, I think we got to go with A-Rod at third base.
Yeah, I picked him. I hated this pick even more than the Jeter pick because it's hard to argue against Jeter. You can make more of an argument if you had someone a close second with A-Rod. I didn't pick Wade Boggs,
which is unbelievable. Charlie Hayes, Scott Brocious, and Wade Boggs. Boggs
wasn't there long enough. I almost felt like, kind of brought in to get him a ring and that sort of. Yeah, I don't know. I don't view Wade Boggs as a Yankee. I know he was there more than a year. Tony Fernandez, I view him more as a Toronto Blue Jay. A Toronto Blue Jay. Yeah. Guerrero, or as OJ used to say, Pedro Guerrero.
When he did sideline.
Yeah, there's the famous call. You can look it up on YouTube. But just YouTube, just search OJ Simpson Guerrero. That's all I'll say. It's interesting.
Right after
you
the
don't
show,
already know. Not right now. If you don't know, it's interesting. If you do know, you know what I'm talking about. Say was in there, but and then I thought, was A-Rod in New York long enough? And he was. Yeah. He was.
Ruben says
I was trying. Yeah, I was trying to disqualify A-Rod. Right, I was trying to, but I couldn't. Yeah, I can't put Nettles over A-Rod, and I don't like A-Rod. I don't like A-Rod.
John is not going for Saturday Night Live's staff, by the way.
Yeah. I do others, but I'm not going to do them.
Nettles doesn't get enough credit. I think that can be true, and he can still be nowhere near A-Rod.
Yeah, he's not the same player as A-Rod. And I know we can talk the HGH. A-Rod was good before it's the whole Barry Bonds stuff. He was good before he used.
Can we just admit that A-Rod annoys us?
He is annoying. He's one of my least favorite. And maybe that's a future show, right? Our least favorite baseball players of all time. There you go. There's.
I don't even know if I have a good reason. I just
A-Rod makes. I'm going to ruin that list a little bit because A-Rod's on that list for me. I just don't. I'm not a fan. Off the field, on the field, I think he's a prima donna, pretty boy. Obviously, we can get into the whole performance enhancers and do a whole show on that, but not my favorite dude.
All right, so you ready to go to the outfield?
Yeah, I think this is where it gets tricky, man.
I think we got to try to finish with 3 if we can.
I'm going to probably mention 8, but I'll narrow. I'll tell you who my 3.
We can narrow to 3. And to be fair, I have a DH. Maybe we should give our DHs first, just get them out of the way.
All right.
I'm going Reggie Jackson at DH.
Wow.
I don't think he's defensively as good as some of the other choices. And he's all power. He's Mr. October. Put him in the middle of the lineup, and Yeah, I'm gonna DH Reggie.
All right, my DH is going to surprise you.
Ron
He didn't
Blumberg.
make my top three. He didn't make my top three now when that I came down to it, but I want to put him in there, man. Mookie Betts.
That's a excellent call.
I'm going Mookie Betts as my DH. He didn't make my top three outfielders,
I
but
see, and Mookie's a great defensive player.
yeah, and he can play multiple positions now. So I'm going
Ruben
Mookie.
says to DH Frank Howard for the Dodgers. How
And
good
it's,
were Howard's years with the Dodgers?
yeah, he was
I'd
a
be curious
masher.
on that, Ruben. All right, so you have Mookie as DH. So we're moving those guys out of the outfield. So I've moved Reggie out, you moved Mookie out, and now we're talking outfielders. Um, I'm gonna say that this year's World Series doesn't quite count because we made our list before first pitch. So no Otani on our list.
Otani was on my honorable mention list, but he hasn't been there long enough. You can't
That's
put him
why
on
that's
this
why I
list.
just made up a rule and voided him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 5-6 years we did this again, he makes it.
Listen, we do this in a week, he might be on there. All right, let me start with the chalk one, I think. Mantle.
Yeah, you got it, man. He's especially when the criteria 50 on, that eliminates, DiMaggio, so
Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth, yeah, I had a mind blank. So that takes them two out of the equation. I think it has to be Mantle. You think Yankees from 50 up, he's the first guy you probably think of. Forget position, right? And he plays outfield. And it's the way he played outfield that probably shortened his career with the bad knees and all that. So, Mantle, and you think World Series, you think Mantle too, right? And so you think of all the classic cards for in the late 50s and 60s.
Is there a more
53
famous
top.
card for the generation than his 52 tops?
Yeah, no, that's the
Between
card,
the
buddy.
Wagner and the Griffey, I think it's the most famous card.
Yeah.
In
So
time.
yeah, Mantle's the chalk pick. There's not much else we could say. I think the other two get interesting.
All right, so go ahead.
Well, you put him as your DH, man. I think you got when you think of all the World Series heroics and there, anytime you see a World Series highlight reel, right? You see multiple Reggie Jackson moments.
But you see him batting.
I know, but they named the month after the guy, Mr. October, right? So I'm not
He's a
even.
better defender.
I was a big fan of Reggie as a kid, and then as I got older and kind of saw how he was and what he was about, some of the things he said, and how he treated Thurman. When I got more into the storyline rather than the on the field stuff, I became less of a Reggie fan. But he remains that one of the first cards I ever pulled out of a pack that started it. And so maybe there's a little sentimental there, but you can't argue with the postseason success he had. The one thing that hurt him in my mind was how many teams he played for. You could, Orioles, A's, Yankees, and Angels, and the list goes on. That made me really think about putting him in, but you can't think of the Fall Classic and not have Reggie Jackson of the Yankees as part of that. And so he made my top three.
We both have him on our list. We have him in different positions, but there's no doubt Reggie Jackson's on any World Series or top list for the Yankees and the Dodgers. Mookie says Kirk Gibson hit one of the great home runs of all time. Doesn't make the cut. Well, we talked about this before the show, and I'm going to put up Ruben's comment because this ties into it. Ruben says that his list is players who actually played in the World Series with the team, not just played for the team in their career. And we have some overlap
The-
there. So a lot of the guys have played for, not everybody. I mean, Mattingly, famously didn't. But
he might be the only one on my list though that would
yeah, I was about to say the vast
come off.
majority.
You know.
But that being said, I think we should give a shout out to Kirk Gibson, Oral Hershiser, Tino Martinez. I mean, guys
Scott Brocious. I mean, he became a
yeah.
postseason legend.
So shout out to those guys. But the Gibson home run's a different level.
Yeah. But that might be best moment, but I don't think he gets in as best outfielder. You know what I mean?
So my next outfielder is Duke Snyder.
Yeah, we both. I changed mine. I had 3 names for this last spot. I had 3 names for this last spot. Duke Snyder, who I went with, Ricky Henderson, and Dave Winfield.
Good call on Ricky Henderson, by the way.
And I think for what it's going to be weird saying this because I just gave Reggie Jackson a pass. I didn't put Reggie in the top 3 or Ricky in the top 3 because I don't know if I view him as solely like a Yankee. You know what I mean? I think of him more as an A first. Also. Yeah, and I think of him first as an A, then maybe a Yankee, then with he was with the Padres, the Blue Jays. I know he played a little bit even with the Mets briefly, and kind of became a journeyman, so to speak.
Mets Hall of Famer
at the end. So yeah, he played for the Dodgers. So he made my honorable mention. I just couldn't get him in there. I put Winfield ahead of him. Then you had who was my other guy? Oh, Ricky Winfield, but I went with Schneider. Just all the home runs and the Duke of Flat. They call him the Duke of Flatbush for a reason. So I'm gonna go. But you could have made a case. You could make a case for Ricky Henderson.
2-1 Yankees, by the way. Stanton just went deep.
So, I wanted to go Winfield. I didn't know if he was there long enough, and I couldn't put him over Schneider. There wasn't enough discrepancy either way. So I went with the hometown. I'm wearing the shirt, right? It says Brooklyn. I went with the Brooklyn pick.
So good pick, actually. And good names. I'll admit the Ricky Henderson slipped my radar. I think there was not a lot of postseason for Ricky.
Yeah, I mean, you can even, Roger Maris.
Maris absolutely is a name. I put Aaron Judge on the list. I know it breaks the rule that we've just said, but I think he's so dominant that he probably needs to play in one World Series, and he would qualify for this list.
Well, he's in it now, you know what I mean? So,
yep, Manny being Manny. I would take him for Cleveland, not.
Yeah, and you mentioned him. You mentioned him before we went live, and I think of him even more as a Red Sox than even an Indian, let alone a Dodger.
Thank you, Mookie. That's how I roll. In fact, I said that to John before the show. We were talking about something. I said, let's just break the rule. Bernie Williams.
Yeah, he's definitely
on my jazz guitarist list.
No, he had some. He was really big, and he was a very good player for a long time, and he had a really good. My memory serves me right. He was good in the postseason. He was a different player in the postseason. He definitely has to be mentioned. I didn't write him down, but I won't argue with him being mentioned. He's not going to be in that top 3 when you combine both teams. But Bernie Williams definitely underrated Yankee outfielder. Let me word it like that.
Definitely caught me off guard. So my final three are Judge, Duke Snyder, and Mickey Mantle.
Yeah, I went with Reggie, Duke, and Mano, and I made Betts my DH.
Mookie Betts is probably the one I regret the most leaving off.
Yeah,
Only
I mean,
he's
he
already
does
got a
it
world.
pretty quietly, but the guy is one
Yep.
heck of a player.
Warren says he loves Bernie Williams. I PC him and I hate the Yankees. Did I mention that? But I
Wow,
love
that's
the way
saying
he played.
something. That would be like me collecting Ravens cards of somebody.
You should. Mookie
You know,
says Bernie is a great call. Some all-time postseason numbers.
yeah. Well, real quick, we'll just sidetrack for like a minute. If I collected a Ravens player, let's see how well you know me.
Yeah.
What player would I collect?
Who went to Syracuse that we had?
No, I'll even narrow it down. He's a current player.
I don't know. That's a great question. I assume
If you don't get this, and then I tell you, you're going to be like, "Oh man, how did I not get that now?"
All right. Yeah.
Justin Tucker.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't have him. I don't have him on my fantasy team this year, which is the first year in a long time. But he's always my fantasy kicker. And listen, if I have to like a Ravens dude, got to be a kicker. It's not going to be a linebacker. It's not going to be a running back or quarterback. Although I will tell you this, my son, who's a big time Steeler fan as well, loves Lamar Jackson.
Well, Lamar's pretty good. He's going for his third MVP. If you haven't heard.
Yeah. And I have a man crush on another quarterback in our division, whose name is Joe Burrow.
He's on my fantasy team, but I can't decide what he really is.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's on mine too, and he's been starting over Mahomes more times than the other way around. So, all right, let's get back to baseball.
All right, let's talk pitchers. You want to start with closers?
Yeah, I mean, there's only one guy here, man.
Well, I think there's two.
Well,
Bruce Gossage deserves to be talked about.
Those are the two names. Those are the two names I wrote, man. Rivera and Gossage on this.
Yep. Mariano Rivera.
It's Rivera, but I did write Gossage, but Rivera's the pick.
Mookie says, let's get this back on track. We did, Mook. Pretty quick for us, actually. We spun into a whole new realm.
I wanted to talk about Justin Tucker some more.
And Deion Sanders played for the Ravens and Yankees. That's the stat of the night. That is true. Okay, so closers, we're both taking Mariano Rivera over Goose. Is that?
Yeah.
Nobody else.
Yeah.
Well, Eric Gagne had one of the great seasons ever as a Dodger.
He did, but he didn't do it enough. Rivera did it year in and year out, and so that it's Rivera, and then you can make an argument for who's second with probably 10 people. John Wetland,
yeah,
right? Who was before, and I don't know.
Sparky Lyle,
but it's Rivera, and then there's a whole 8-drop staff. I mean, he's in an air by himself.
I mean, he's in pleated khakis and a polo, guys. There's no way not to pick him.
Yeah, 92 Bowman. I spent a lot of money there too.
All right, starting rotation. I think there's one chalk one.
Yeah, I think
Koufax.
Yeah, Koufax is I went with a 5-man rotation and 3 honorable mentions. So Koufax is obviously he's the first name I wrote down. I'm not if that's
Well,
how you want to.
Larry, I think has been peeking at my page here, so I'll let you go.
Well, there's two other ones on my list, right? So let's just Ford and Drysdale. I have,
Yep.
the first three I have written down are Koufax, Ford, and Drysdale.
Yep.
Those are the first three on my list. I'm not even necessarily saying that's the order I'd rank them in, but I got a feeling I would since I wrote them down kind of like that. You know, I think here's where it gets interesting.
I wanted to check. I just forgot somebody, and I want to see if the years match up. Go ahead. You don't need to wait for me.
All right, so my fourth guy is Clayton Kershaw.
Yep, he was on my list.
And I know he's kind of struggled when you get to this time of year, and he's not going to pitch this time of year this year. He hasn't had great postseason success, but he's one of the all-time Dodger great pitchers. So
yep. I had Don Newcomb is the one I was double checking.
Didn't make my list, man.
Yep. Mookie says, "How about all lefties? Go with Fernando, Koufax, Whitey, Andy Pettit, and Tommy John."
Yeah, there's Andy Pettit. Andy Pettit did make my
Jim Bowden.
Honorable mention. Honorable mention.
And then I got Doc Gooden on the list.
I don't.
That's more of a lifetime achievement award, I think.
Yeah, he wasn't on the Yankees long enough. You want my fifth guy? I think we're forgetting this guy. How about Don Sutton?
Good call. I think he's overrated. I do. But he's a Hall of Famer, 300 wins.
Heavy Dodgers.
To me, he's a little bit like the Harold Baines of pitchers.
Yeah, he's still a great pitcher, man.
Oh.
Yeah, Clemens wasn't there long enough. Longevity.
If we're gonna say A-Rod, how many years was Clemens in New York?
Oh, what? 3, 4, 5? I mean, was it?
Don't let us keep you up, John.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about Roger. If you can't tell, I'm not a Roger Clemens dude. Right? When you think of Clemens, you think of what first?
Well, steroids.
Red Sox. Well, that too. But team-wise, all right. You got me there. I won't argue that. You think of Red Sox, right?
Mark?
And Mark will probably agree with me. David Cohn. I kind of forgot David Cohn.
6 years in New York for Clemens.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't view Clem. I know he won there. I don't view him as a Yankee pitcher. And I know he was a Yankee pitcher, but for this list, I don't view him really as a Yankee pitcher. Johnny Padres. I know Greg Maddux. Again, how long you were there has to factor in this.
I'd put Maddux on the Cubs or the Braves, but not the Dodgers.
Yeah. And, that's why Don Sutton made my list, man. Look at his Dodgers career numbers.
Sutton's got good numbers, but does he break that rotation? And how about Fernando? How about Fernando Valenzuela?
Man, he was so good for like 2 to 3 years.
I know. And he pitched 19.
Yeah, Allie Reynolds is a good pick.
Reynolds.
I mean, we forget guys, right? Because they're overshadowed by monsters on the mound, right? Your Fords, Drysdale's, Koufax, and we forget.
There you go.
Nomo.
Nomo had a couple.
My five were Koufax, Ford, Drysdale, Kershaw, Sutton, with my honorable mentions being Hershiser and Pettit. I actually had 7 names, not 8. I had 8 outfielders written down, 7 pitchers.
Post 1950. When did
Yeah,
Vance
Desi Vance.
was
Yeah,
a decade before?
yeah, he was. I think he pitched in the 40s. Was towards the end.
Um, I don't know. That's a pretty good teams in the World Series.
Yeah, man, you wouldn't throw as I say, you wouldn't throw whatever you decide on some of the fringe guys. You wouldn't throw them out of bed. These would be world championship teams in their own right. Mel Stoudemire was in.
He made my team as the pitching coach.
Yeah, he was in my own private discussion in my head.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's shame on me for that one.
I
Shame on
don't.
you too.
How long was he a Yankee though? That's where I
Long enough.
yeah.
Good job. Good pull, Ruben. Good pull. That would finish at that would be my fifth. I agree with you on the first four, and this would be my fifth.
Yeah, I like Catfish. Yeah, I guess you could take Sutton out, maybe put him in. I'm not going to change my list, but you could say that.
Yeah, Hershiser, if we're talking postseason performance, definitely is on the list, but not.
And the way Larry
not
spelled
like
Hershiser, he's now German. I don't know if he was German prior, but he's German now.
Yeah, and where card mentions makes me a little uncomfortable. Hershiser put the team on his back in '88. Yeah, absolutely without a doubt.
That might be arguably maybe the best season as a pitcher. It's in that conversation.
5 years as a Yankee for Catfish.
Man,
and what was I'd love to know. I could call it up, but we're running out of time. I'd love to know what his Cy Young rankings were.
he might have won. Didn't he win at least one?
Yeah, but I'd love to know how. Yeah, Lefty Gomez.
Yeah, I think he did a lot of his damage before. I'm not saying he didn't pitch into the 50s, but I think he was more of a 40s era, but I could be wrong.
John Candelaria, didn't he pitch for the Yankees for a cup of coffee?
Yeah, not that. Man, you pulled that one from the. I don't know where that came from. Where did that?
He had a couple good years with the Pirates.
Did John Candelaria slip you a $20 bill?
He slipped me something. I'm not sure. Catfish Hunter finished second place, Cy Young in '75.
He never won one
with the Yankees.
Yeah, all right.
I thought he was more dominant with the Yankee years. I thought, that's when Palmer was dominating.
I'm not saying he shouldn't be talked about. I didn't consider him when I made this list.
I totally forgot. Him, Ricky Henderson, and Mookie Betts were probably my three biggest that I just overlooked.
I mean, you're talking about two legendary teams, dude. Like, we can make a B team. We can make a B team that would probably be a World Series favorite. That's how great this list is,
Absolutely, especially if we include the steroids.
Yeah.
And Catfish won a Cy Young 74.
Yeah, I knew he won at least one. Yeah, I knew
Jim Bowden. Yep. And the advantage of having an author on the team as well.
And he can tell all your secrets to everybody.
Yeah. You think anybody would talk to him in the locker room anymore?
Yeah. I know of him. He didn't make my list. I don't know if it was the book deal, which doesn't bother me really that much, but I don't know. I don't know how long he was a Yankee. I don't know. I just didn't. I don't know. I look at Andy Pettitte. Yeah, I looked at Andy Pettitte as more consistent.
And I think Clemens is, and boy, do I dislike Clemens, but Clemens' numbers with New York were pretty dominant.
They were good. Good, but I don't think he was there long enough for him to make my list.
I thought it was like 6 years. I thought that's what somebody said. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, 5 years. I thought he was.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, man, 50 big ones.
Is that what John Candelaria gave you to be mentioned in these lists?
Hey, it's a TTM request.
John Candelaria. I don't even. Are you sure he played for the Yankees? That had to be real brief.
I'm going to look it up now.
Yeah, let's go. I'm fact checking you like this is a presidential debate. I don't think John Candelaria was a Yankee. And if he was, man, how long was that? Because I don't even remember him. I remember him. I don't remember him as
okay. 1988, he went 13-7 for the Yankees.
That was his only year.
And 89, he went 3-3 before he moved on to Montreal.
Yeah, man, that was a.
And he pitched for the Dodgers in 91 and 92.
Yeah, towards the end, I think a Candyman. I think first of the Pirates, and then he just wore so many hats. I don't even remember those Yankee. I don't remember them.
What is your limit on time to be considered?
I don't know. I didn't set a rule for myself. I'm almost thinking like with guys I left off. I'm thinking I kind of was a 7-year guy. You had to be on a team at least 7 years. Unwritten in my mind or unminded in my mind.
Unminded in your mind?
Yeah, if there is such a thing.
I think that means it's getting near your bedtime.
Yeah. Getting older, man.
I'm telling you.
Speaking of 50 and getting older, tomorrow, Saturday, the 26th, my wife is 50 years old tomorrow. So episode 50 tonight, her 50th birthday tomorrow.
And Ruben saying 5 years is a full regular contract. He's just saying. So make sure your wife resigns and gives you that 5-year option and keeps you on until she's 55.
Yeah, I'm on a 10-day contract.
I've been married for 20 years. I live on a 10-day contract.
It just keeps getting renewed.
Right. That day 9 is a sweat every time. I never know which way it's going to go.
You go in the manager's office and you wait for the talk. Like, am I staying with the crew?
And you got to bring the notebook. Yeah. All right.
Where am I going, Coach?
Seriously, buddy, glad to do 50. This was fun. Glad for the chat room as always. You guys,
Lady Newman,
worth doing.
Happy birthday to Lady Newman. Somebody once called her, not tonight, but I don't even remember the circumstances. They're like Mrs. Sports Card Nation. I thought that was funny. Like if I said that to her, I don't know what kind of look I get, but it wouldn't be a thumbs up or a smiley one. So,
all right. Say goodnight, John.
Good night, John.